When is the next election?
What if I were to ask you when the next election is? Well, if you're not one of the 27% of registered voters in Chautauqua County who voted in 2015, the last local election year, perhaps you're in the group of voters who only thinks of national elections. But in fact, every November, there are seats up for election somewhere in the county. Voters have no shortage of opportunity to make their voices heard. What goes into the voting process each year? What makes it run smoothly? Who are the people who tend to vote most? Least? Well, to answer these and other questions, I sat down with the County Commissioners of Elections, Democrat Norman P. Green and Republican Brian Abram, the two men responsible for organizing the election process each year. Take a look. Can you talk a little bit about some of the things that you do that helps the voter have an easier experience?
Every election year, the customer is the voter. That's our theme. We want to make sure they have a good experience. Any time that we can make sure that we find a way to make it seamless and efficient, we're doing everything we can between the facility that we pick, the parking outside, the signage, the greeting of the individuals that we hire, the workers that are there, and the machine itself, and the flow in and out of the building.
Length of time to waiting in lines and so forth?
Yes, everything is evaluated and continually upgraded and changed to make sure that everybody has a good experience.
And one of the things that we've noticed, I'm sure you have as well dealing with statistics, is the divide between the older generation who seems to love to get out and vote for local elections and the younger generation, which some of them don't even know that the election is taking place. Why do you think that is?
I believe the disconnect is their lives are changing so rapidly. Mm-hmm. They're going from senior in high school to a new world, if you will. And I believe engaging in politics and that kind of thing is a difficult situation because since their life is changing, since they don't know if they're even going to be at home to vote, let alone they could be away at college, and they have a whole bunch of life-changing decisions going on, I believe that voting and local politics and national politics falls to the bottom or down a little bit, if you will, versus the older person who's stable, has a home, and has a lifestyle that isn't in flux at that point. And I believe that's a big core reason why the older generation will turn out and vote to a much higher degree than the younger generation because of where they are in their lives.
Now that wasn't anything that I had actually considered. I hadn't thought of it that way.
Yeah, and I think that when I tell them and I talk to the students and I say, look, I get it. This is an important moment in your life because you have too many other things that are extremely life-changing and your life is kind of exploding in a new direction. But I will always say to them, register now because if and when you do come to vote, the key to voting is being registered.
Right.
So get that part out of the way, and then once you realize that the important aspect of life is to pick your leaders and pick the ones that best represent you, you have to be part of the process. So just register and consider voting, now and in the future.
So why do you think it is that there's this divide between older voters and younger voters when it comes to county elections?
Just slowly but surely been decreasing in numbers. People become less in tune as to who their elected officials are, less concerned and less caring. I would tell you that it's no different than everything else that's going on in the country.
Are they missing something?
Yes, it's important that people vote. The reason why people don't vote is because they're insecure.
Now, what do you mean by that?
They don't know who's on the ballot. They don't know what's going on. So at the Chautauqua County Board of Elections, we put a lot of time and energy and effort into a website. And on our website, we make sure that the ballots are there so people can look and see who's running before they go to the polls. They can see who their elected official is. We direct them that way. We make sure that we have all the questions answered. We allow people at votechautauqua.com to go in and look up their personal voter information. Okay. So, am I registered? Well, go look at votechautauqua.com. So, we feel that that's our way to help voter turnout.
According to stats, 15% of eligible voters in Chautauqua County are not registered to vote. On top of that, as we mentioned before, only 27% of voters actually showed up. Why is that? Well, we know it's not because it's difficult or because the process is complex. And we know that a lot of the older generation, they don't seem to have a problem getting out. We went to this year's Labor Day festival to ask some of our neighbors when the next election is, as well as their thoughts on voting in general. Here's what they said.
I'm not absolutely sure when the next election is.
November 7th, 2017.
2020. 2020. 2020. November.
I don't know.
The election is in November.
In November, first Tuesday in November. It's common knowledge, isn't it?
Is it though?
To me it is.
Okay, what if I told you you're all wrong?
You gotta specify presidential. What do you?
Yeah, what kind of vote are we talking about?
So
We're talking any election.
okay, November of this year.
Of this year. So why did you say 2020?
Because we thought you meant presidential.
So why is that the first election you think of?
That's the most important one.
Is it?
That's what the media makes it seem like. I think local elections impact as much as, if not more than, the national elections.
So you can elect every year around this time. I didn't know that.
I just didn't know, and I didn't want to have nothing to do with the last election.
Yeah, voting is important.
Because it's a right. And people have fought and died for that right, and if you do not partake of it, you don't have the right to say anything.
Voting is very important to me. I always tell people if they didn't vote, they have no right to complain.
I just think it's important. Every opinion matters, so you should always go out and vote, no matter if you think it's not important, because it is.
People gotta want to vote. There's a lot of stuff going on right now, that make people not even really care about it too much,
I think it's just voter apathy.
Because people don't think that their vote means anything.
As you can see, the responses we heard varied, whether it be apathy, not knowing enough, or not feeling represented. We here at Common Ground want to dive into this issue. We want to explore the candidates, how our local political process works, and the effect local elections have on our community. Please stay tuned for more episodes as we continue to explore this, our common ground.